Oh, Justice League, what's an enigma you present? Who would have thought that trying to splice together the creative visions of two directors with wildly different ideas and styles into some horrifying Frankenstein's monster of a movie could have turned out to be such a critical and commercial failure? Well, pretty much everyone, as it turned out. What was your favourite part? The half-finished CGI combined with a colour scheme so over the top that it looked like someone had held an acid party at a Dulux warehouse? The villain who looked more generic than an IKEA wardrobe? A Ben Affleck whose weight, complexion, hair, and general enthusiasm changes from scene to scene? The plot so riddled with holes and failures that it's enough to induce seizures if you think about it too much? Henry Cavill's terrifying face? Whatever, the point is that the studio panicked and desperately tried to course correct a movie that was already on the home stretch, with predictable results. Needless to say, this didn't go down well with Zack Snyder fans, and yes, there is such a thing apparently. Slowly but surely, they banded together and lobbied with increasing volume and persistence to have his original version of the movie released. The Snyder Cut became an urban myth over the years, and all kinds of rumours circulated about how complete it was, how different the story might be, and whether it was even feasible to release the thing. Warner Brothers consistently denied its existence, because it would be pretty fucking embarrassing if it turned out to be better than the version they actually went with, while mainstream journalists openly mocked the growing Snyder Cut movement, because they still like to delude themselves that anyone actually cares what they think. Either way, it seemed like everything was against it, and the Snyder Cut was never going to happen. But wow, what a difference a major corporate buyout and the launch of a new streaming service makes. Before you knew it, AT&T stepped in, overruled Warner Brothers, and said, fuck it, let's just give the people what they want, and hopefully get a bunch of them to sign up for HBO Max in the process. Which pretty much brings us up to today. The first proper trailer for the Snyder Cut of Justice League just got released this weekend at DC's fandom event. Anyway, whatever. The question is, how does it actually look? Well, let's find out, shall we? The trailer kicks off with what may be the biggest possible fuck you to every single person who said this movie was never going to get released, by playing Hallelujah over pretty much the entire thing. If nothing else, you've got to admire the balls on them. And we're not messing around here. It's straight into the middle of a battle, with a big meaty dude swinging an axe right into the camera, followed by a slow-mo shot of Superman writhing in agony. We also get to see the post-apocalyptic world from Bruce's dream in Batman vs Superman, helping to better establish a connection between the two movies. Then it's a chance to catch up with our main characters. Diana discovers the warning arrow that her mum fired from Themyscira, telling her that Steppenwolf is on his way. Meanwhile, Bruce is brooding over a hologram of Superman and probably wishing that he hadn't got the guy killed. Aquaman, on the other hand, is busy getting drunk and throwing himself shirtless into the ocean. We've all been there, mates. Things get a bit more interesting when Cyborg and the Flash show up. We get to see Cyborg when he was still fully human, before whatever the fuck happened to turn him into this. And the Flash using his powers to rescue someone from danger. There's even a hint of a romantic subplot between them. Wow, it's almost like these guys are being treated as actual characters, with motivations and backstories. What's ever next? You're gonna give them an arc, where their experiences cause them to evolve and learn things about themselves? Remember how I pointed out how dumb and anticlimactic it was when these new characters were just dumped into the movie with no setup or developments? Remember how hard it was to give a shit about them because we knew nothing about where they came from, what they wanted, or even what kind of people they were? Well, I suspect we can thank Joss Whedon for that brilliant writing choice. There's also a scene of Aquaman telling a sad-looking Amber Heard to go fuck herself, which I suspect is a bit of art imitating life right there. Haha! And what's have we got here? An antagonist that actually looks kind of badass and menacing? Someone that looks like they could pose a genuine threat to the Justice League instead of a badly rendered villain from a low-budget PS2 game? And of course, the shot that everyone's been waiting for. Henry Cavill with a normal face at last. No, I'm talking about Superman in his black suit, which I guess is what he wears after he gets resurrected from the dead. Like, he's in mourning for himself, even though he's alive now. Well, I don't fucking know. But I have to admit, it looks pretty fucking cool, especially when you see them standing side by side with the rest of the league, with the kind of rendering and lighting conditions that they were meant to be shown in, instead of looking like a bunch of drunken cosplayers awkwardly trying to sneak home the morning after a fancy dress party. There's a lot going on with this trailer, and while it's more of a collection of interesting visuals than a properly structured narrative, you can see that the clear intent here is to put right a lot of the problems from Whedon's cut, which is no small task when you consider that basically everything from that film was wrong. They've included as many unique scenes as possible to distance this film from the theatrical version. There's a big effort to build Steppenwolf into a genuinely threatening antagonist, as well as fleshing out the supporting characters that were criminally underdeveloped before. This is all good stuff that I'm sure will result in a better film. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. By all accounts, the Snyder Cut will land as a 4-hour miniseries, which I guess allows Snyder to work in a lot more content and subplots than before. Whedon's cut always gave the impression of trying to do too much with too little, rushing and stumbling through its contrived and hastily reworked plot to get to an ending that somehow managed to be both overblown and totally unsatisfying. Since Snyder's been given all the editing and screen time he needs to make his vision a reality, the only question now is whether his material is actually up to the task. And I can't help but wonder what the hell this might mean for the DCEU if the Snyder Cut somehow takes off and becomes a big success. Warner have been working to quietly reboot their extended universe over the past couple of years, gradually moving away from the failed Snyderverse in the same way that you politely back away from a fat girl that tries to dance with you in a nightclub. But a wildly successful relaunch of Justice League just might throw another massive spanner in the works. Who knows? One thing's for sure though, I'm glad they decided to listen to the fans for once and give this movie a chance. But Drinker, you indefatigable impresario, I hear you say. You've always been a fearless champion of artistic freedom in the face of outside influences, whether it be political censorship, social justice pandering, or public demands for change. How can you be okay with compromising the artistic integrity of any movie, even one as shit as Justice League, simply to appease vocal hordes of unhappy fans? Well, hypothetical person that I use as a convenient prop to get my points across, the difference here is that the artistic integrity of Justice League was compromised long before the film even came out. Whether you like him or not, Zack Snyder had a creative vision for this movie. He knew the story he wanted to tell and how he wanted to tell it. Unfortunately, his movie was hijacked by panicking studio executives whose creative aspirations extended about as far as do the thing that makes the most money at the lowest cost. And it was handed over to a hastily hired, poorly prepared man with an entirely different creative vision. Stealing the man's film while he was dealing with a family tragedy and trying to radically alter its cinematography, emotional tone, storyline and characters at such a late stage in the game was simply a disaster waiting to happen. And happen it did. Zack Snyder knew it, the fans knew it, and fortunately AT&T knew it. The question is, what does all this mean for the wider industry? Is the Snyder Cut just an isolated little curiosity brought about by a unique set of circumstances that'll never be repeated? Or does it mark the beginning of a new age of fan participation in filmmaking? Are studios actually going to start engaging with their audiences in a productive way instead of blowing them off and insulting them? I mean, there is a precedent for this kind of stuff, like when Sonic the Hedgehog's disastrous trailer prompted a wave of fan backlash, and rather than stubbornly forging ahead with a movie that was guaranteed to bomb, the studio actually swallowed their pride and acknowledged that they might have got it wrong. Delaying the film's release to make the necessary changes proved to be the smartest move they could have made, garnering huge amounts of fan goodwill, and ultimately producing one of the most successful video game adaptations in history. Not bad. It's almost like, if you listen to your customers, they'll be more likely to buy your product. Take note, Lucasfilm. Of course, for every olive branch extended between fans and studios, there's an army of furious journalists desperate to snatch it away. People that are so convinced they know better than you, they're not willing to consider the possibility that they might be the real problem. So for all those increasingly irrelevant journalists complaining that the very existence of the Snyder Cut emboldens toxic fans to make even more extravagant demands, well, cry me a fucking river, you dicks. The real reason you're shitting yourselves is because people are starting to realise how pointless and counterproductive you actually are. We don't need you and we don't want you anymore. Ultimately, while I'm still unconvinced that the Snyder Cut will turn out to be a triumphant cinematic masterpiece that reinvigorates the DCEU, I'm still happy it's getting released. I support the right of Zack Snyder to see his original, uncorrupted vision brought to life, and if it helps to usher in a more collaborative, less confrontational relationship between fans and studios, well, that can only be a good thing, frankly. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.